everyone. We're going to just be finishing up some of the material for Chapter 6. After today, we'll do a little bit of material on Thursday just to finish up the very last few touches, but we're just about ready for our next exam. It's going to be your second exam. It's 1 week from today, so next Tuesday, which is March the 1st. I've posted the study guide and list of key terms are posted in Angel in the Module 2 folder, so I would recommend that you check that out. I'll have printed copies for you on Thursday, but it's a good time to start maybe studying for that and just looking over material and coming to Jeopardy on Thursday prepared to see how well you've learned the material. Anytime assignment number 6 is due on Thursday. I've posted that in Angel as well. It has to do with some of the things that we're going to be talking about today. So please make sure that you bring that with you. It's due at the beginning of class on Thursday. What we're going to be talking about is attachment. We've been talking a lot about social development. And if you remember, we talked about basic emotions, some of the emotions, the emotional development, what theories we have as to how emotions come to be. Do they gradually differentiate, or do they kind of start out really differentiated from each other? We've talked, at least hinted about the idea of emotional regulation. How is it that babies and humans learn to regulate their emotion? But what I want to talk about for a few minutes is relationships, and what we call the infant caregiver emotional relationship is attachment. So most of you have probably heard this term before. If you've done the reading for today, which hopefully you have, you've seen this term. And basically, attachment is simply an emotional bond between children and their caregiver. So this develops at around 7 to 9 months. So it's not something that babies are necessarily born with. Now think about how stressful the first 6 months of life are, right? Women give birth to babies, parents stay up all night with these babies, but we don't really think that babies form an emotional bond with their caregivers until about 7 to 9 months. So what do I mean when I say an emotional bond? How do we say that kids actually show attachment, or that they show this bond? What are the signs that we can look for? And there's actually 4 signs of attachment that researchers have found, and if you look at babies across the board, across the globe, that really suggest that they form this emotional bond. And if you think about what it would be like to have an emotional bond with someone, these actually make sense. So if you are attached to someone, if you think about the relationships that you have in your life, if you're attached to someone and have any kind of an emotional bond, you're going to see a few different signs of that. So this holds both for babies and for adults. One sign is that you seek to be near someone. If you're in a relationship, you seek to be near that person. And if you're not near them, you show distress. You're not happy when they go away, but when they come back, you're happy to be reunited, right? If you are in a relationship with someone and they've gone away, you're sad about that. When they come back, you're happy. And finally, you orient your actions to that person, meaning that you want to do things with them. You want to engage them in discussion and in talk. So what I would say is that you really want to see that babies are showing the same kinds of attachments and emotional bonds as you would to someone else as well. So again, you seek to be near someone, you show distress if separated, you're happy when reunited, and you orient your actions to that person. So really, these are the signs of attachment. We start to see these signs kick in at about 7 to 9 months with babies. The question becomes, where does this come from? How is it that we even have this attachment? Where does this emotional bond come from? And there's 2 different explanations or theories of this. One is Freud's drive reduction explanation, and one is John Bowlby's ethological explanation. So if you think back to everything we've learned about Freud, you know that Freud's all about biological drives. What's one of the biggest things that babies need to do to survive when they're little? Frankly, they need to eat. So Freud's drive reduction explanation says that attachment to the mother originates because the mom is the one feeding the baby, that it's all about nourishment and biological drives. Right, so Freud's saying, look, babies have this biological urge, this need to eat. So they will attach or form an emotional bond to whoever is giving them that nourishment. So they would say that breastfeeding moms will have this great attachment with their babies because they're the ones that are providing the food, and it all comes down to biology. And in one sense, evolutionarily speaking, that would make sense in that babies would want to attach to whoever's giving them the nourishment that allows them to survive. So Freud looks at evolution and says, look, babies need food to survive. That's going to explain the emotional bond that they have. So this is one explanation in which it comes down to nourishment. Another explanation is the ethological explanation. And this is put forth by a researcher whose name is John Bowlby. And he basically says it's not really about food. He says, look, we can look at evolution. If we look at some of our evolutionarily sisters or brothers or cousins, you see that if you look at, say, primate behavior, primate babies are attached to their mother in kind of warm, kind of contact comfort that they need physical contact. And that's really what's important, not so much about food. And he really based his theory based on whether or not babies and kids show successful attachment or what he called detachment, which is a state of indifference towards others. So if attachment is an emotional bond, detachment is having no emotional bond. You have no emotional bond towards other people. And he really started to study this because he looked at institutionalized children during World War II, and he found that if kids weren't able to form an emotional bond, if they weren't able to successfully attach to a caregiver, you really saw that those kids were withdrawn, they didn't form stable emotional relationships. There was a real big kind of problem with their emotional development. So Bowlby really emphasizes kind of contact and babies being able to attach to the person who's available to them. And he says that if you aren't given that opportunity, say because you are institutionalized because your parents have died, maybe you're in an orphanage, or you're really sick, right? If you don't have that ability to attach to another person, you really see that those babies develop a state of indifference towards other people. They basically are showing detachment versus attachment. So basically, we have two different explanations here. We have two different explanations that emphasize different things. We have Freud's drive reduction explanation, which says that nourishment is key, and we have John Bowlby's ethological explanation, which says that attachment is based on more things like contact comfort, on being able to have a need that is satisfied not by food, but by comfort itself. So how do we figure out which one of these explanations is right? And the answer comes through work done by a researcher named Harry Harlow. And basically the question is nourishment enough? Is it that nourishment is what explains attachment? So I'm going to stop right here. You need to now move on to the next video where you're going to see this experiment which was done with monkeys to look at whether or not attachment is based off of food or comfort.